I think when you're performing a data-driven audit, you're doing something that is it's not necessarily the most conventional thing. So you have to actually think of the audit in a slightly new way. I think it's important to let the data speak for itself, right? So as an example, there is an expectation phase in an audit where you're kind of thinking through the expectations of the audit outcomes and what your expectations of the business that you're auditing. But I think one of the things that's maybe different about having a data-driven audit and using advanced technology like AI to help with an audit is you need to let the data speak for itself, right? So this means that you need to think about leveraging the data at an early stage in the audit activity, in the expectation setting and in the audit planning phase, because that can often lead you to some of the more important areas to look at and understand in the audit. So I think a data-driven audit requires us to rethink somewhat how we approach it. And the important thing I would say is that you really need to let data speak for itself, and in order to get the most value out of a data-driven audit. It's actually quite a common question. I think, again, this is about kind of setting expectations. I think one of the things is that you should expect challenges as a part of performing a data-driven audit. There are going to be challenges in terms of data wrangling and getting the data ready and prepped. My advice is, again, expect challenges and plan ahead, right? I think oftentimes if you don't leave it to the last minute, then you're not surprised, and everything goes much smoother. I'd say that it's important for firms to have a data strategy and to have and to know how to connect with their clients. Sounds really simple, but know what to ask for and be very precise, right? In that, and often, for example, at MindBridge, we provide guidance on that to our clients so they can, so their data ingestion process can be easier. We even go to the extent where we will help our clients load and wrangle data, because we recognize this is a challenge, right? We want to get ahead of it as well. We want to help our clients do that. So planning ahead, having a data strategy, engaging with your vendor to make sure you're getting the right information, and then if you do that, things will be much smoother. It'll be easy sailing, and you won't have people working long hours or late to try to figure out a data wrangling problem, because it will all be managed out front. And actually, this is one of the things where I'd say data wrangling challenges are sometimes as much a third of the energy that people put into data-driven audits. And it's possible to be way more efficient if, again, you plan ahead, have a strategy, ask for the right things. It sounds really simple, but it's so important to get right. And ask for help. Like, so for example, at MindBridge, we have a whole team that just love doing this stuff, and like nothing more than taking on a new data wrangling challenge, because they spend their whole day doing this, and that's fun for them. So that's my advice for people thinking about data wrangling and how to think about it. I think one of the things that is kind of maybe different about MindBridge is that we don't rely on a single model, right? Our view is that to create a really robust AI system that can analyze financial transactions from different industries and across many different parts of the world, for example, you need to think through the problem and not rely on a single model. So MindBridge's philosophy is not to have a single model system at all. And this means that our AI is actually built from multiple different machine learning, statistical, and rules-based models. And we believe that it's called an ensemble AI. And we believe that is the most robust and effective way of constructing a financial analysis system that will work in almost any circumstance. It helps you do things like avoid bias. It helps you build things which are truly robust and will always bring valuable insights. So how do we select those models? We have a data science team, and we have quite a number of data scientists on staff. And our data scientists, they're not just experts in machine learning models or data science itself. They're also experts in audit practice. So they're actually domain experts. One of our data science lead, Rachel Kirkham, she spent 10 years as an auditor working at the National Audit Office in the UK, and she actually leads our data science team, who have this broad experience both in not just machine learning, but in audit practice itself. And I think that's really important. That domain expertise means that we are constructing models which are targeting the right features and are building the right level of insight. The other piece that's important to MindBridge about the machine learning models is that we construct them in a way where we can explain them. So explainable AI is a big part of our philosophy as well at MindBridge. And this is because our AI serves non-technical financial professionals, right? So they aren't people who are building AIs themselves, or statisticians, or they're people who are financial professionals, and our AI needs to explain what it has found in kind of plain language. So we spend a lot of time in the model selection thinking about how explainable is this, and can we construct, we actually have a pattern for this in our product, can we construct an explanation which is going to make sense to people, right? So our process is, we try lots of different, we're constantly evolving. The process is never ending in terms of improvement on our algorithms. And we're always looking at, algorithm robustness. Will it work in different circumstances? Does it meet user needs? And is it going to be explainable? So those are kind of some of the criteria that we use. But we also, again, we go slightly further than maybe other organizations, because we actually also have our algorithms audited by a third-party expert in AI systems. So we actually use an organization called University College London Consulting, and they are performing. They performed an audit last year on our algorithms. We'll do another one this year. So we think that's important, so that our clients know that not only are we building insightful algorithms, but that they work, and they don't have to take our word for it. They can actually look at a review by a third-party professional that our algorithms are well designed and robust. There isn't a single way that we select a model as well. We actually combine different techniques. So we have statistical, machine learning, and rules-based, as I said. And this means that we're always looking for new and novel approaches. And at the moment, by the way, we in any single analysis that we do, like a general ledger analysis, we're applying something like 32 different methods. We call them control points, in order to pinpoint areas of interest in the financial data. Again, so not a single model system. This creates more robust, and it's constantly evolving. So we have quite a lot of pride in the capability that we've created, and it's continuing to get better. And as I said, we don't tend to rely on a single method. I would say one method that we rely heavily on, in terms of we think it's particularly valuable, is a category of machine learning called unsupervised machine learning. And the reason that we think that is valuable, and particularly in the audit space, is if you can imagine a problem, like if you're a human being, you imagine a problem that could occur in some financial data, it's likely you can construct a rule that might detect it. And then you can build a rule that will help you find those circumstances. That's how many computer-aided audit tools work. They're kind of rules-based systems. Now, the problem with rules-based systems is they will never find something that you don't anticipate. So if you can imagine the circumstance, you can anticipate the problem, and you can construct a rule. But if you can't imagine the circumstance, you can't anticipate what's going to happen, there's no way you could detect it, right? So these unsupervised machine learning models, what they're great at is finding things that are unexpected. Like, they will find something that is just empirically, genuinely not normal or unusual in the financial data. And these can be something that you don't anticipate, but we find them to be amazingly valuable in detecting irregularities in financial data, because I don't think it's possible for us to imagine every possible circumstance. And certainly, if you consider fraud as a risk, right? If a fraudster knows how they're going to be detected, they will avoid all of the rules, like they'll sidestep any rule that they're aware of that might detect them. So you have to get ahead of the game, and you have to design things which will detect things that are unusual, which you don't anticipate. And that's why MindBridge, if you were to say what's our favorite kind of machine learning, it would be unsupervised machine learning tailored to financial data. And it's for this purpose of finding, we call them unknown unknowns, things that you don't anticipate, you don't even know are there, right? So, and that's a lot of the value in using MindBridge in an audit, is that it will find things that you might never have seen before, things that you might not even expect to look for, but which are high value. In general, I'm a big fan of APIs, but I probably have to step back from that for a second just to talk about how important they are, to customers in general versus specific use cases. So my view is that and again, this speaks to our product serving non-technical financial professionals, people who are in business who aren't necessarily coders or statisticians, right? You want a product that doesn't require you to write code, right? And you want it to jump out of the box and provide you with value and insights. So if using an API is required for you to receive value, and let's say you're a smaller audit firm, right? You might not have the skills or expertise to do that yourself. That could be a costly activity. So my expectation, or the expectation at MindBridge, is that you shouldn't need to write code or use APIs to receive value. You should be able to do it without them, right? And this perhaps, this belays the value that I see the APIs having in general. So I'll get to why APIs are valuable. But I think we should have this expectation that if you're a line of business, you're purchasing a product, you shouldn't have to write code necessarily to get it to work for you or get it to work well for you. And that's our philosophy at MindBridge. Now, there's a flip side to this, right? And this is where APIs become amazingly valuable. Now, let's say you're a firm and you want to perform 500 or 1,000 audits a month, right? That's a lot. You're going to need to be amazingly efficient. You're going to need high levels of automation. That data ingestion challenge that we talked about earlier, you're going to want to make sure that you've solved that problem really well, that data is coming in and is able to be processed as efficiently and quickly as possible, so that your team are spending time on the right things, like are spending time on the most interesting, highest value activities in the audit, right? So this means you need some level of automation, right? So what we see is we like to get people started without necessarily having to have an API in place. But at the point where you're going industrial scale, and we're talking hundreds or thousands of audit engagements a month, that's the point where you really need to think about automation. And this is where APIs come into their own, because you can get data from one side of a system to another very quickly if you can leverage APIs to automate that. And that's why at MindBridge, we think a lot about, okay, what are the APIs into our product, right? And what are the APIs out, so that we can make it possible for organizations to push data into MindBridge, run their analysis, get their insights, and then also pull those insights out and have them go where they need to go, right? If that's a working paper system, or if that's leveraging report output from MindBridge to share with their client. We think about both of those, and we also think they're super important. But I would say it's at the point where you are industrializing and you're going to kind of full scale adoption of something that they become vital. But in the early days, if you're looking to receive value, you're maybe trying to do some smaller scale things. It's maybe 50 audits, a month or something, that you might be able to get by without leveraging APIs, and that can also be that can also help you, because you're not having to write code to actually receive that initial value. So I see them, and again, it's a little bit of a schizophrenic answer. I'm saying you shouldn't have to use APIs. I still believe in that, but they can be so important to scaling adoption, right? So MindBridge has APIs for that scaling adoption purpose. So I think, again, I go to this point that the amount of data in the world, particularly in the kind of financial world, so we are talking banking, finance, and audit, the amount of financial data that we are generating every hour of every day it's continuing to increase, right? And it's at a scale which is I'm going to use the word inhuman, right? It is not possible for a human being to look at every transaction, and that's long been the case. That's not something that's not news to most people, right? And go back many decades, right? It was no longer possible for a human auditor to look at every transaction in the business. There was just too much going on. But that problem is now, I'm going to say it's worse than it ever has been. We are creating more data than ever before. And this means that the burden on auditing that information has increased, right? So data science can help us improve the transparency around all of this information, right? By helping a human auditor or a human counterpart understand what's actually going on in vast amounts of information. I was working with a client recently where we were looking at millions of transactions on a single screen, right? And we were able to say most of these transactions, 99.4% of these transactions are ones that we don't need to worry about, right? It's just this 0.6% that we should spend our time on. And if you can build a technology that can look at all of the financial data, every single line of every single transaction, and then create these insights and summarize it in such a way where we can save people time. We can actually say, we've looked at all of these. The machine has looked at all of these transactions, and we know what's there. These are the ones which don't look quite right, or they look unusual, or maybe you should spend time on. So I see that as being a huge value that data science, machine learning, AI can bring to financial transparency. And it's not about having the machine replace the human being in the loop. It's about the machine taking on the arduous process of looking at everything so the human counterpart does not have to, right? And what this builds is better financial transparency, because we know where the problems lie. We can spend time on those problems to, perhaps we need to improve controls, perhaps we need to make adjustments, correct things. But we're spending time on the high value items, right? If you're randomly sampling, you're likely to find things that are pretty normal. Like you're unlikely to find those unusual circumstances which require human attention. So I see AI and machine learning. They're actually they're improving financial transparency. They're also improving our ability to understand financial data, and it's we are making the lives of people who have to audit and review that financial data much easier, right? Much better, and we're allowing them to get away from mundane, repetitive tasks of constantly reviewing things that are just normal, to spending their time on the highest value activity, looking at the things that really require the human level intellect to review and understand. So I don't know, it's again quite a long answer, but I see this as it's a huge opportunity for machine learning. And I think it's one of these things where I think people engaging in this the field of applying ML and AI to financial data is super important to us continuing to provide better financial transparency and better outcomes. If that's whether that's from auditing a business or running a business. I think one of the things that we're all concerned about is in this kind of public service kind of world is money being deployed effectively, right? And this is true of public services and private industry. You want to know that it's efficient, right? You want to know that money is being deployed effectively and used effectively. You want to know that there are appropriate controls in place, right, to make sure that happens. And I think what's great about AI is, again, thinking to this, building trust in your financial data. If you can look at every transaction, you can actually identify what controls are in place and maybe what controls are not working so well, right? Those kind of insights that you find from analyzing financial data actually help organizations make better management decisions. So I think organizations that leverage AI and analytics on their financial data, they're making better decisions, right? And it's producing more efficiency, and it's producing higher quality outcomes for everyone, not just the organization itself, but for the receivers of the services as well. So I think, and again, this speaks to my point on analyzing what's actually going on in the data, leveraging that information to make better decisions rather than, let's say, randomly sampling or just looking in a corner of the data, or not having time to look at everything. You can easily miss something. My favorite example of this is if you randomly sample, you're looking to verify the presence of controls, right? So you say, hey, the control worked in this case, and you sample the data and you verify that the control worked in that case, right? But isn't it better to look at all the data and then say the control didn't fail, right? Because you're actually interested in when did the control break, not when did the control succeed. So it's a different level of assurance, right? So this is where AI could really help. Look at all the data, figure out what's actually going on, and then find those control failures or those parts when the defined process breaks so that you can improve them. So don't look for confirmation that it works. Look for the evidence that it didn't, because that's where the value lies, and that's where we need to take actions to improve it. So yeah, I do think AI can be leveraged to increase trust in public services, and it's exactly through this kind of mechanism.